So actually, we are now known almost like a cloud company, not just an open source company. In fact, we started as open source company, but now, in fact, more people know us as cloud company. And you know, when it comes to cloud storage, open is actually very important. How you use cloud, how you are putting data on the cloud, as well as what is the format that is being used on the cloud. That is actually very critical. We try to work with as many cloud storage as possible. We have not integrated with EMC Atmos yet because it's too expensive for our customers. But we like RESTful API. So if storage has RESTful API, we can very quickly integrate with it. So if entity had your storage already set up and you guys were providing the RESTful API, we can integrate Zmanda with it very quickly. So in general, when we mean cloud backup, we mean two things: backup to the cloud and backup off the cloud. Backup to the cloud is based on RESTful API, as I mentioned. Backup off cloud depends on what kind of cloud we are backing up. So if in case of Amazon EC2, for example, we use EBS snapshot to provide backup. Okay, I think you guys are probably familiar with what is storage cloud, so I'll probably skip this slide. Many of our customers want to back up to cloud now because tapes are becoming old style. Although I have to say, tape has not gone away. You know, people at some point, maybe 5 years ago, said that tapes will go away, but they have not gone away, and we still have, I would say, majority of our customer base still backing up to tape. But we are beginning to see customers looking to back up to cloud now for several reasons. Most of them dealing with how clunky tape really is, even though people still want to use it. So some of the features that we have developed, for example, actually now we are shipping 3rd generation of our cloud backup software. One is location control. So you can tag the data and you can decide where your data will go. So for example, if you are in Europe and you are subjected to EU's data protection requirements or data compliance requirements, you can say that this data cannot leave EU boundaries, and we will only back it up to the cloud which is physically located in Europe and not located in Asia or US. And we do that so we have now clouds available in 3 continents, US, Europe, and Asia. We also allow the end user to control the size of the block being transferred from premise to the cloud. So that really depends on what kind of environment you have. So if you are in a 3rd world country, you have a really bad link, you can have a very small block size. Or if you are sitting on a very fat pipe, you can do a jumbo size transfer and you can have a very big block size. So that sort of that gives you the flexibility of fine-tuning your cloud backup. I already talked about location. So actually, when we talked about cloud backup, compliance was the very first thing that sort of hit us, where why should I let my data leave my firewall? And many companies actually have this as a genuine problem. And in fact, this is, I would say, one of the key reasons why cloud is still not being adopted by the biggest companies, because they want to keep data very close to their chest. However, there are certainly mid-sized companies who are also subjected to compliance requirements but do want to back up to cloud. And this is where we have to fix the compliance issue in terms of by doing encryption, in terms of using data centers which are SAS 70 certified, for example. Okay, so in terms of cost comparison, backup to tape versus backup to cloud, the reason why I have a question mark in front of backup server, if you are backing up a single machine directly to the cloud, you may actually not need a backup server. So in fact, we have 2 products. One is Zmanda integrated with cloud, which is the client server architecture as Paddy talked about, where we have a backup server. We actually have another product called Zmanda Cloud Backup, which has no notion of client server. Each entity directly backs up to the cloud. And that's actually our fastest growing product in the company. The real cost difference is tape drives and tapes versus WAN bandwidth and cloud storage. And that really depends on which geography you are in and what is your retention policy. If you have a very, very long retention policy and you are sitting in a geography where WAN is expensive, where bandwidth is expensive, then likely you will stick to backup to tape. If you have very fat pipes and your retention policy is not too long, or it is long, however, you are willing to pay for it, then you will go to cloud backup. That's sort of our baseline conclusion at this point. So we support backup to cloud in different ways. One is just replacement of tape directly from data center to the cloud. Another is using cloud as a vault. So still backing up to disk locally, but then doing a D2, D2C operation. So later on vaulting to the cloud. So instead of vaulting to Iron Mountain, you basically vault to Amazon's data centers. And as Paddy mentioned earlier, we have integrated Zmanda with the Amazon S3 as well. Actually, that implementation is also open source. So in fact, other cloud providers are using that as a reference implementation to integrate with Zmanda. This is the other product I talked about, Zmanda Cloud Backup. This is not an open source product. This is only a Windows specific product. This backs up a single Windows machine directly to the cloud. There is no client server architecture. This is very similar to, for example, Mozy, which is basically a single binary which backs up one Windows box, whether it be a desktop or a server, directly to EMC's data centers. We do exactly the same thing, except we are backing up to Amazon S3 in the backend. Earlier this year, we also started offering disaster recovery in the cloud as a solution. So far we have been basically working with the storage side of the cloud, but now we are also working with the compute side of the cloud. So basically this allows you to use cloud as a very inexpensive DR location. So instead of building your own data center remotely, you can use a remote cloud, for example, Amazon EC2 as your disaster recovery location. So those are the two ways we do this. One is to simply replicate the whole thing to the cloud, simply replicate the whole backup server, including the catalog and the data. The other one is using our Amazon S3 integration, where data is backed up to S3 and the configuration and catalog is replicated to the cloud, and then the recovery is done from that virtual Zmanda server in case of a disaster on the primary site. This is actually a very popular offering that we have. In fact, we developed it for customers first as part of a service, and then we productized it. In terms of key considerations for disaster recovery on the cloud, the question really is, how fast do you want your recovery to be? If you want it really fast, then you want those standby VMs to be running all the time. If you are okay with your recovery to be to wait for these virtual machines to come up, then you can just leave them, you can configure them, and then you can just leave them in sleeping state, and then the cost will be extremely minimal, just the cost of storing those virtual machines, which is nothing. Basically it's 15 cents a gigabyte for every month. One interesting thing that we have observed, or after talking to several of our customers, what we found is that yes, bandwidth is expensive. For example, here we are in Bay Area, and for a 6 megabit uplink, we pay $1,000 a month. However, those $1,000 a month we are paying for an SLA based bandwidth. The reason why we are paying that is because we want to make sure that bandwidth is available for all our employees at Zmanda, no matter what. But if you are willing to live with bandwidth which is not SLA based, which is, for example, the bandwidth we get at our homes, then actually the cost drops a lot. So some of our customers, what they're doing is they are instead of using SLA based bandwidth for uploads, they use non-SLA based bandwidth for uploads, because what we have done is we have made our software intelligent enough that if for whatever reason your uplink is down for one night, we will catch up your upload the next evening anyway. So the cost of not being able to do a backup on a nightly basis, or once in a blue moon basis when let's say your home DSL fails or something like that, is not too huge. So we actually have a lot of customers who are not using their standard SLA based link for cloud backups, but they are using non-SLA based links, and those are extremely inexpensive. Like for example, in San Francisco, in some geographies, for like less than $100 a month, you can get into 50 megabit per second. That's actually downlink, but even uplink is pretty good. So so we see this being a common thing. Okay, actually, I'm going to skip these two slides because I want to come to what are the most important things we have learned in the process. Actually, to be honest, with cloud backup, it's not really the technology that has been the issue. It's really changing mindset in terms of how do you do backup. And especially when talking to larger customers, privacy and concepts of privacy, trust, and culture are the main things that that are somewhat of a bottleneck. For small and medium-sized companies, this is not an issue. So that's where we see the biggest adoption. And by the way, this was one reason why other than the fact that we are generally open and open source, but we are also we decided in the beginning to be completely transparent in terms of where the data is going, because we wanted to use Amazon's brand in terms of where the data is going, which gives more credibility to the customers. And I'll sort of end here. I think I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think cloud backup as a general business, I would say, is still 1 to 2 years away, because bandwidth is simply not there. In some geographies, bandwidth is there. So in fact, in Japan and Singapore, for example, there is very good bandwidth. But in most places in US, we don't have, unfortunately, the bandwidth to do multiple terabytes over a weekend. So expectation management is really the key. So if you have a customer who wants to back up hundreds of terabytes to the cloud, you have to manage their backup sets in a way that is actually practical, because otherwise it will basically become a customer satisfaction issue. So I'll take any questions from any of you.
The answer is no, but since most of my customers are outside the country, if you don't care about the time it takes to do backup, it's better to just use this and try to back up on Amazon, simply because the storage is cheaper than building a local infrastructure.
Yeah, so are your customers in like Latin America or somewhere? Where are your customers? Latin America? Yeah. So first of all, by the way, we have seen very good experience, especially from some geographies in Latin America all the way to some data centers in US. So the experience has not been that bad. Of course, you are coming over international link lines and all of that. The second answer is that actually from what we understand, there is going to be an Amazon center in Latin America within, relatively soon. So that's another thing. Third is that you can actually build a cloud of your own. So we do support private clouds. So if there was an organization like a telco or your organization, if you were to build a cloud storage which can talk RESTful API for storage, we can actually back up to your center instead of Amazon. Amazon is our publicly available product, directly sellable from our website. However, we have actually worked with other telecom providers around the world who have built their own private clouds, and we back up to those clouds. But I would not be surprised if Amazon starts a data center very soon in Latin America. We know the one in Japan is coming too, so those guys will be competing with you, I think. Any other questions? All right, I'll pass it on to Jack then.